Chattel slavery. The enslaving and owning of human beings and their offspring as property, subject to being bought, sold, and forced to work without wages. American chattel slavery was different from other types of slavery that existed in many places throughout the world because, in most cases, it was permanent. But what made chattel slavery in America unique was that it was exclusively race-based, meaning that only African people and indigenous people, as well as their descendants, were enslaved. What if I told you that almost everything you know about slavery is wrong, or that although the United States abolished chattel slavery more than a century and a half ago, its long history still affects life in America, from everyday things like what we eat, the music we listen to, the schools we attend, and the books we read in school, to big picture issues like where we live, which Americans have the most wealth, and even how some Americans, namely people of African descent, are treated by the police. It's true. Everywhere you look in the United States today, there are remnants of the transatlantic slave trade, during which between 10 and 12 million captured people from the west coast of Africa, including an area called Senegambia, and west central areas such as Angola, were brought to the shores of distant places like Cuba, Barbados, Brazil, and of course early North America, even before there was a country called the United States of America. Of those millions of men, women, and children who were forcibly taken from their native lands, only 3%, or roughly 400,000, were bought and sold in port cities throughout the southern region of our nation. That number may seem small, yet the impact of their enslavement on our country's development and expansion was huge. The trading records and ship manifests of European slave traders, businessmen, and early explorers help us piece together a complex puzzle of slave trading that includes various ethnic groups of African people who are captured and transported to slave ports throughout North and South America and the Caribbean. But what slave ledgers cannot tell us is who these people were, and, in many cases, who their African American descendants are today. It would take a while for widespread slavery to take root in our nation, but slavery and its cousin, indentured servitude, were customary practices on American soil way before the country itself was founded. And seeds of what would eventually become American slavery were germinating in the consciousness and spirits of the Founding Fathers before they penned the Declaration of Independence. George Washington, the first U.S. president, was a slave owner, and he wasn't alone. In total, there were 10 American presidents who owned slaves, some of them while they held the highest office in the land. You may be thinking, why all the fuss about something horrible that happened a long time ago? Or maybe, my ancestors were never slaves or never owned slaves, so slavery doesn't concern me. Well, the truth of the matter is that while chattel slavery in the United States ended over 150 years ago, African Americans still face barriers that are systemic, meaning they are fundamental parts of our social system. Those barriers include discrimination in housing and employment, inadequate education, persistent racial profiling, and police brutality, which are all lingering remnants of American slave culture. And maybe it's true that your ancestors never owned slaves, or maybe your black ancestors were never enslaved by white people. Nevertheless, all Americans today benefit from the brutality and the bounty of American slavery. For example, slave cultivation of cotton made many American businessmen rich, and not just the slave owners. Business tycoons, such as the brothers Henry, Emmanuel, and Meyer Lehman, maintained a lucrative enterprise as cotton sellers in the South and the North. Their business savvy led to the establishment of the New York Cotton Exchange, which organized the trade of what was at one time America's most coveted commodity, cotton. Before it went bankrupt in 2008, Lehman Brothers was one of the largest investment firms in the world.